Hey, Pool Chasers. Thank you for joining us today in episode 47 of the Pool Chasers podcast. Our mission is to help educate and inspire in the form of a podcast. We just recently got back from our road trip to see the Jandy headquarters, and man, it was awesome. But while we were there, we got to interview Ruben Galvan, who is a vice president of training and organization development for Fluidra. In this episode, we discussed the importance of taking the HR part of the business much more seriously. Many of the business owners in our industry wear multiple hats, with one of them being HR. We tend to make other parts of the business, such as the customers, generating revenue, and getting the services out, a priority. And those are all very important. But imagine the impact it can have on your business if you can take the time to invest into your people by listening to them, showing them recognition and appreciation, and letting them know how important they are to the company. It is vital to understand that if you want to have the best customer experience, it starts with the best employee experience. They are the front line, and they are the ones that interact with the customers on a daily basis. What they experience when they walk in the door each day will be reflected to the customers out there in the field. In order to have a strong company culture, the individuals you hire and bring on as part of your team must believe in your vision and the company mission. They must also mesh well with the rest of your team. Remember, every hire will have a huge impact, whether that's a good or bad impact on the dynamic of your team. We understand that some things can take time to roll out to the company, but please get what you can by listening to what Ruben suggests implementing into your business. Start with one or two things, and we promise you will see a significant improvement in every aspect of your business. So get your notepads out because you want to take a ton of notes. We hope you all enjoy the episode. We also want to take a moment to recognize Memorial Day and to say thank you to the men and women who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Whatever you're doing out there today, please be safe and remember that it is because of them that we can live free and do what we love.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Ruben.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me here. I'm really excited to do this.
Yes, we're excited as well. Can you please introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us what you do exactly here?
Sure. My name is Ruben Galvan. I am Vice President of Training and Organizational Development for Fluidra here in our San Diego headquarters. And my primary responsibility is to ensure that we have the right people doing the right things to deliver the right outcomes for the organization, ultimately to serve our customers.
Very good. We'll jump in more into that role here shortly, but can you kind of talk with us how you grew up in Southern California and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your family? Absolutely.
I am originally from the Los Angeles area, born and raised in the San Fernando Valley. Moved out to San Diego about, 8 years ago. I have a wife, 16 years, almost.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a while. I have two daughters, 13 and 10. You know, one of the things that's, it's just kind of carry on from when I grew up. I was always very close with my family, always did things, my mom and my dad. I have a younger sister. It's just all about a family. Weekends came along, we'd be going, it could just be the park, it could be to McDonald's, it could be whatever, but we were always together, a lot of family time. And I've noticed that, as I've had my own family, that's also very important. I always like to say, I do what I do to allow me to be as best a dad that I can be. So family's first and foremost important to me. And then, of course, work and all that other stuff comes around.
So how do you like having two daughters? Because any opportunity I get to ask, I have to ask because I have two daughters myself. So how is it having a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old?
So great question. I'll tell you, my 13-year-old will start showing me snippets of the teenage attitude on occasion. Chief among them, the eye roll, right? I've started to experience some of that. So,
oh no, I'm scared.
But it's funny. My 10-year-old's still sweet on dad. She probably hangs out with me more than mom, right? She still loves me. And I'll tell you some of the things that I would recommend is I've leveraged some of my HR experience, and it's really communication. So when I get the eye roll or I all of a sudden see that remnant of the teenage attitude, I sit her down and say, hey, let's talk about this. Why? Did I do anything to provoke it? And so far it's worked. And, kind of snaps her out of it and say, like, you're right. And hopefully it continues into her later teenage years. Again, she's just 13. So we're starting. So ask me again in a year and we'll see how many gray hairs I have.
So what do you, just being a guy, what are you doing with your daughters for fun?
Okay, good question. I take them with me everywhere. I should say, anywhere they want to go, I will, basically take them. So they want to go to Boomers, for instance, on Friday, drive go-karts. They love that. If I'm working on the yard and say, hey, you guys want to learn how to do this? I'm trying to fix something. I invite them to be part of that. So, I remember when I was growing up, my dad had me with him everywhere. My dad was a contractor since I was the age of 4 until I got out of high school and moved out and went to college and stuff. I was basically his guy. Summers, I always had a job. I was getting dirty and all that stuff. So I try to do that the same with my girls. They probably don't have the same affinity for the outdoor stuff that I do. But, baseball, they're starting to get into baseball. I love baseball, right? So that's, one of our family outings. And
what's your team?
Dodgers, LA Dodgers. Exactly.
Very good.
Thank you. But just include them in everything I do and recognize that sometimes they're not going to be interested in stuff, but they're still interested in hanging out in general. So,
yeah. Do you find it difficult kind of battling technology a little bit with, your younger kids?
Yes. If I contrast to the technology that I had when I was a kid, which usually consisted of a rock and a stick, right? And now they have iPads and phones and stuff like that and Netflix. And trying to get them off those things is sometimes difficult. So definitely we've had to institute some discipline around, how much they can use it and for what. Closely monitored, of course, but it seems to work. And, sometimes it takes me introducing an old-fashioned Monopoly game. Hey, guys, let's come over to the table, let's play a game. And if you guys don't want to do that, then you guys can hang out and read.
The real game of patience right there. You get through a whole Monopoly game.
Exactly.
Very good.
Did you have any mentors growing up and people that instill values in you?
I think my first mentor will be my dad. And my dad always instilled in me the value of work ethic. My dad was a perfectionist, being in the trade, right? He would not finish a job or consider it finished, I should say, until he thought it was perfect and his customer was satisfied. I grew up with that. He goes, if you're going to do something, always do it to the best of our ability. Just don't get into this kind of business or don't do it because it's not worth it. So that was my first mentor. As I kind of got into my career in HR, I had another mentor probably about 10, 15 years ago, and he really relayed to me the importance of relationship building, right? And understanding the various people that you interact with and whatever it is you do. And I see that here at the business level, right, with the relationships we create with our customers, but also internally with the relationships I create with the other leaders and various individuals that make what we do happen every day. Always understand, I think, is the key learning here, that you might meet somebody and you never know how they're going to be influential to you or help you or you be able to help them. And from there, good things arise. So it's the value of relationships and keeping those strong and vibrant.
Right. And I think there's a lot of business owners and fathers and mothers and different things like that listening to the podcast right now. What advice would you give, to somebody that being in a leader position, you're always setting an example for people? And I'm sure you being in HR, you're asking questions and you're coming up with solutions maybe. What suggestion would you really have for people and just, being a good example all the time for everybody in your life, because ultimately you want people to be better that are around you?
Yeah. I'd like to say always lead by example. Don't do something that you would not want others to do, first and foremost. Treat people with respect. And when you're engaging somebody, whether, I'm asking somebody, for instance, on my team to do something, or I'm trying to understand a problem so I can try to help develop a solution, is listen. Honestly listen, because sometimes people just hear, right? They're kind of glossing over the communication that's coming to them. But I think listening is key important thing. And if you do that, people will respect you and tend to understand that, if you do it consistently, you're somebody that they can rely on.
Yeah. Did you see that in your father quite a bit, where he was he had the attention to detail, but he was genuinely listening to the customer and the people around him. And he just had processes. He woke up at the right time every day, and he was just on it. And I think, there's a generation that's kind of losing that. But I remember even, my father, it was the shirt was tucked in and you had the same, work boots and the hard hat, and you just did the same thing all the time. And you did have the attention to detail. So I'm sure your father was a great example of, really how to set a good example.
That's exactly right. It was about discipline, right? It's about following through with what he knew worked. It's about honoring your word. Right? When you said you're going to finish something on time, you finish it on time. And again, you do it to the best of your ability and your customer satisfaction. definitely.
Yeah. So in the questionnaire you filled out, you mentioned that you always wish you had a pool growing up. Why is that? And, what about the pools and the environment do you love?
I'd like that question because I'll tell you why, and this is going to reveal a little bit about me. When I was a kid, I used to love watching Jacques Cousteau, the famous world oceanographer and traveler, and the guy would always go diving. I remember from my youngest age, I wanted to do, diving and stuff like that. So whenever I had access to a pool, either at a friend's house or, relative's house, I would bring my little mask and jump in there and pretend that I was Jacques Cousteau, right? Awesome. Always family moments, usually associated with a lot of people around the pool, lots of kids, barbecues. It was just a lot of joy to do that, right? So to me, I grew up always wanting to be in the pool. And in general, even if I wasn't putting on the mask or anything like that, it's just fun to be in the water. It's just spend the whole day and you don't get tired. So that is something that I remember fondly. And I always said, if I can do that for my family when I grow up and have my kids, I'll definitely do it.
Right. It's funny how when you're a kid, it's just being in the pool, around the pool is just pure fun. Unless you're just acting crazy, running around the pool, it's just pure fun. Nobody's going to ask you to do any work. There's not much thinking involved. You're just in the pool and in the presence of the atmosphere of the pool and its environment. And it's just fun.
That's exactly
what
right.
I mean? There's not too many other things. You're sitting on the couch watching TV. You very well might get asked to get on the ladder and change out a light bulb or, do something. But in the pool, it's like, no, this is fun time.
That's exactly right. It takes so many different shapes and forms. You're jumping in the pool, you're swimming in the pool, you're flipping in the pool, you're hanging out in the pool, right? You're throwing your sister in the pool.
But you also feel amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if, at 33 years old, swimming with the family for a couple hours, it's just the sun and the water and just kind of getting that exercise. You just feel energized, and it's just something that water does to you that you can't really get anywhere else. You know what I mean?
I think it's rejuvenating, reinvigorating, right? It just kind of brings you down to the basic elements, right? Water, earth, or, whatever you want to call that, sun and all the stuff. It's just the things that we need to survive. And there's something calming and relaxing about it. Yet at the same time, it can energize you. So lots of fun.
Do you think that passion for it helps you in what you do today and being involved in the pool industry?
Absolutely. Again, I'm so excited about our mission, our create the perfect pool and wellness experience, right? That says it all. And to me, there's nothing better than thinking about being out, grilling some steaks, having your family around and friends, and, giving them an opportunity to have some very healthy recreation, right? Activity, but then also being able to feed them and then getting right back in the pool in the spa, right? So no, absolutely. I think it's something that makes me excited about what we do, because we're trying to create that for our pool users out there, pool owners and their families.
Right.
So we're going to get into, what you do, little HR talk here. So what did you do before working here, and what made you take the opportunity to work here at Fluidra and Zodiac? How'd you really get into HR?
Okay. I started in HR by chance more than 20 years ago. I actually was thinking of going into marketing and sales, and I had an opportunity to get an HR role at the job that I had at the time because I had told my boss that I needed to leave. I was about to graduate and said I need to find me a job in sales or marketing and need to get that experience. I have always had, since my college days, an extreme interest in psychology. Just the way that people work, the way that people, get motivated, what unmotivates people, right? What causes people to make certain decisions over others. So when this opportunity to take HR, again, I don't think it was anything that I really thought I was going to do when I was doing my undergraduate studies. It's like, I remember HR from like a class like, it's about people and personnel and stuff. Personnel, right? When I had this opportunity, I said, you know what? I still have a year to graduate. Let me do this because, I worked as I was going through school. And I took that opportunity, and I'll tell you, as I got into it and started learning more by not only doing it on the job, but just reading up and trying to see, where HR was at that time, which is back in the early 90s, I really felt, wow, here's an opportunity to be in a business job that actually helps people. And fundamentally, that's one of the things that really has driven me to do what I do, is the fact that when HR is done right, you in essence are trying to set up the systems within an organization to get the most out of people, and then you reward that, and then you reinvest, and it happens again, and great things happen. So That's how I started HR. And as I went along the years, I started very operationally, right? More of the administrative stuff that people understand, hiring people and, doing benefits and keeping the files to the point where what I do now is more, I like to call it an architecture of people systems, right? Within the organization. How do you set things up so that you get the best and most positive response of people? They feel good about what they're doing and they help drive the organization forward.
Right. And it's so funny. I think at HR, have you ever seen The Office?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, I knew you were going to bring it up. I put that question just in there just for you to bring up The Office because I knew it was going to happen.
To be honest, isn't Toby the HR person?
Yeah, Toby.
He kind of ruined it for the HR people. Well, we're here to tell you that Ruben is freaking awesome. There's nothing like Toby's character anyway in there.
They're so messed up to him, though. They're so messed up to Toby. He always gets the bad end of the stick.
They actually make you not like him. Like in the beginning, you're like, I feel bad for this guy. And then finally, just be quiet, Toby. It's like, why am I being like that? It's not that bad.
There's a lot of stereotypes about HR folks.
That is crazy. Tyler, you know what I saw today?
What'd you see today, Greg?
A husband and wife inside MPT looking to pick out some new tile for their new pool. And you know who was there to help them?
Who?
An MPT expert. And the process seemed to be going pretty smooth.
Well, yeah, MPT Design Center is the place to go for pool tile, pool finish, hardscapes, and outdoor kitchens. Whether you're building a pool, remodeling it, or just dreaming about it, you can check out their website at mptpool.com to locate an MPT Design Center or showroom near you.
And for all you pool professionals, builders, designers, send your customers to MPT for professional design assistance and product samples they can take home. On the mptpool.com website, you'll also find a wealth of photographs to show what MPT products will look like when they're installed. Plus, you can download a copy of the MPT tile and pool finish catalogs or order a printed copy to be mailed to your home.
So download the MPT mobile app to select products, save favorites, and email them directly to your pool builder. And be sure to follow MPT Pool Products on Instagram and Facebook for the latest photos and product information.
For those that don't really know, can you explain what HR really is?
Absolutely. I think the easiest way for me to do this is explain the different dimensions of HR, right? So the first dimension of HR is making sure as an organization that you are able to hire and retain the people you need to drive your organization forward. So if you're a pool services business, for instance, you need to hire people that are going to go out and interact with your customers, maybe do the pool cleaning, replace the equipment. You may need some people in the back office to help you, track orders and the accounting. You might need some people on the phone who are your customer reps, right? To kind of scheduling and understanding the needs. So HR in most basic function is that operation that allows you to find those people, train those people, retain those people, and ultimately reward or pay those people, right? The most basic. Once you have that basic layer of HR, then you're talking about, how do you drive performance, right? And typically that's associated with the desire to grow your organization. Or a lot of times what happens with small businesses, they are so good at what they do that the business grows and they have to realize oh my goodness, how do I do this now? Because when I was, with 100 accounts and this team, I was able to do it. Now I have 200 accounts. I'm not having enough time to be as effective, and I'm noticing that I'm not servicing my customers the way that I should, right? Sometimes it's drawn. So the next level of HR is more of a strategic workforce planning where you're starting to think about the future and understanding as your organization grows or as you start exploring different areas that are going to yield greater results in return for your investment, right? What things you need to do to get your people prepared to do that, right? Obviously, you're going to have to hire some of your people. You're going to have to train your people. You're probably going to have to get new systems, maybe a new computer system. Are you training your people in an effective manner? And then ultimately reward your people, right? So that what you're doing with your teams has value, and that value is commensurate with somebody else that might want that talent that you have in your organization. In other words, you want to retain them. You don't want the next competitor to take them away.
Right. And if you've dealt with any small businesses, what are some of the biggest struggles that you see that they face that they just can't wrap their head around, or they're just, missing it? Is there something in particular that you're seeing with small business, maybe especially in the pool service sector? Because that's where we were at. And there was so many highs and lows that it just was really difficult to really keep up with it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I'll say challenge and constraint that small businesses face is the fact that because they are a small business, sometimes they need to wear many different hats. And I'm talking about the owner. Sometimes the owner will have a number two. It could be a family member, right? And it's usually one or two, maybe three people that are running the business and kind of assuming all the responsibilities. They're the salespeople, the marketing people, the service people, the finance people, the HR people, the operations people. And understanding the importance of investing in the team, or even having the ability to invest in the team because of the time constraints, right? Because you're doing so many things is the most difficult challenge. And a lot of times because people feel, well, if I spend extra money on getting somebody that can help me with these other functions, I'm kind of taking that out of my pocket, is somewhat short-sighted, because in reality, in order to get further ahead in your business, you have to take a momentary, what I'll say, loss in terms of you're going to have to invest to make that investment grow.
Right. I mean, it's true what they say. It takes money to make money.
Exactly right.
Sometimes you have to invest a little bit of money into that. And we never had an HR person, but, the more that we learn and talk with people like you, I think we do wish that we would have gotten some kind of, HR consultant to come in and just kind of get a sort of bird's eye view of everything and just look at how we conduct business, what the day-to-day operations look like, and really step in and be like, okay, well, I'm going to kind of point out some of the things that I think you should really fix. And that's, processes. And I'm looking at the way this person's treating that person. And, there's so many things that I'm not saying that's the road you have to go down, but, we've talked about it many times, having different types of consultants in different sectors of our business. That way, if you own a business, aren't you trying to make it be the best business it can possibly be? And don't you want to wake up and just be like, yeah, I'm excited to go in because my team is badass. The place is organized. Everybody knows what to do, who their point of contact is. And what are you willing to do to get yourself on that level? There's little things you can probably do to get to that point.
Absolutely. Let me add to that. I think as the organizations start being successful and start hiring teams, one of the things that I always caution, and this is again at that foundational level of HR, is do everything you can to make sure you keep your money. And here's what I mean. There's so many laws that affect the way that you employ people, the taxes you have to pay, things that need to happen. I'll tell you, especially in the state like California, there's so many different things you need to be aware of when you're hiring people. Some other states are not as stringent. But if you're a small business owner thinking you're doing the right thing, and from a just most basic compliance, employment level, you miss something, it can come back to haunt you in the form of taxes or penalties and that hard-earned money, right? That you thought you were saving because you weren't hiring a consultant or a professional to help you with some of those things goes out the door. So at the most fundamental levels, I think business owners always have to be very cautious about how fluid employment laws are and taxes and things like that you have to deal around with employment.
If, say, we were looking for a person like that, is there any place in particular you can go to look for those things? Like, is there like city council meetings or, for like small businesses where they can go and kind of interact with people? Is there any place in particular, maybe online, that people can just go and, I don't know, communicate with, people like yourself?
Yes. I think what I've noticed is local chambers of commerce are always a really good resource, right? If you want to talk to somebody live, you typically will have small business owners being part of the chamber. You can ask them about their experiences. You can ask them for a reference, right, if they have professionals that they're dealing with. So that's always a good thing to do. Nowadays on the internet, you can find a ton of people, right, that are willing to provide to you not only live HR support, outsource HR support, or even virtual HR support. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's really just, going in there and trying to, figure out the best solution that makes sense for the budget, right? And given the size of the company, what they're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
We were always trying to develop that part of the business. That was one of the biggest struggles for us, was trying to figure out the right questions to ask in those interviews. And it took us, 10, 20 different guys and interviews to kind of figure out, okay, well, that question didn't work. He didn't answer it correctly, or, this guy definitely lied about that because he wasn't that good at what he said he was. And, that part was really, it was constantly changing and constantly updating. It was very difficult for us.
But, looking back at it, and I think people listening can really relate to this, is that I don't think we put as much time into it as we should have.
No.
There's so many things that it's almost like you wish there was just this list, and it didn't matter if there was 1,000 things on it, but you wrote everything down and then you prioritized it. And then it's like each one of these could very well take 5-10 years to do, but each one of these is going to get everything I have and everything my brother has, since we're both the owners. And when it got to HR, which is going to be at the top, you would sit there and be like, we're not leaving until we figure this out. How are we presenting, the job? Where is it going to be? Where's the job ad going to be? What does, onboarding look like? All these different things. And, just putting that quality time in it and not like, scrambling last minute to, put all the pieces together. Like, oh, somebody quit.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by like how we were constantly adapting to it, because it was just happening while we were running the business, and all of a sudden, oh wow, this guy quit. Now we need to hire. So just put this together real quick, slap it up there, and it wasn't really
you're all over the place
done how we wanted it to
but
be.
It's so crazy reflecting on it. It's funny that if we would have taken the time to really perfect it and make it be the best it could be, we could have very well stopped running around so crazy.
Yeah.
Like we could have gotten superstars. We could have gotten the right people to actually be in the business working, and wouldn't have had to run around like crazy all the time. Would have had time to work on the other hundreds of things that are on that list.
And that's a really good point you guys are making, and it's all about opportunity cost, right? Learning, doing HR takes time. Now, if that's not the natural expertise, you look at it from an opportunity cost perspective, right? Are you guys actually getting the value out of investing in that versus maybe partnering with somebody that can help you? Or given the size of your organization, is it something you should take, in terms of learning it and going to the right resources so you can become more versed, so that the time you spend on it becomes, like I said, less intensive. And a lot of times that comes through preparation, right? Having checklists, having a procedure that you can maybe borrow from another business. You can look up on the internet. There's a lot of different things. But I think what happens a lot of times, HR is kind of the last thing that people think about, where I think when you're setting up your business, it should be the first thing you're thinking about, because the sooner you get all those things out of the way and you kind of standardize some things, the more time you're going to have to run your business.
For sure.
Oh, buddy, we got a special announcement here.
Yes, we do.
So our friends at Jandy are crushing it with their push to quit the internet.
Crushing it.
We recently made a special trip to San Diego to see their new facility, which is amazing. But most importantly, to get an update on their progress with catching online violators. We had the opportunity of sitting in on their enforcement meeting, and let me tell you, this was taken a lot more seriously than we thought it would. They showed us a chart of violations and, their progress from January till now. They're at 82% attainment of compliance, meaning from day one when they started policing and enforcing to today, they have reduced the number of Jandy violations online by 82%.
It's simple. The customer wants to go online and save a few dollars by purchasing their equipment online. This is something that we've all gone through as service professionals, and Jandy's heard the cry. They've taken a stand and they've supported our industry. They understand that only a qualified pool professional should work around electrical, gas, and hydraulic connections. I mean, have you even seen a customer work with that kind of stuff?
I have, and it's not pretty.
Definitely not pretty. Jandy's warranty will not cover any Jandy equipment that is not purchased, installed, and or serviced by a pool professional. This will save you guys time and money by allowing you to avoid those awkward conversations with your customer and let you focus on the part of the business that you do best. If you want to find out more details, listen to episode 31 of the podcast or go to jandy.com/builtstrong. That's jandy.com/builtstrong. So we're sitting here in the big new Fluidra building. We all know that they've kind of taken control of Zodiac, Jandy, Polaris. These companies have come under one roof. What kind of challenges have you seen with the merger of these companies through an HR standpoint and through a culture standpoint, and bridging that gap to kind of make one company? There's so many different languages and cultures involved that you're bringing together under one roof. So what kind of challenges have you seen?
I think you can go to a variety of different studies that talk about mergers and the aftermath of mergers. And typically the thing that creates the biggest headaches or challenges are the people, right? You have, in our particular instance, right, two businesses that were successful on their own right. right? Deciding to come together, join forces to become an even better business. And as you mentioned, right, bringing with it its own flavor, so to speak, its own flavor of how they approach the business, but also its own flavor of leadership and, culture and values. In this particular instance, our values are very much alike in many, many respects, but nonetheless, you still now have the international component, right? You have the cultural component that's based on geography. Right now, we're spread out throughout the world. And you also have the component of, hey, we still have to run the business. So when you take all those different things, couple them with people, right? The biggest challenge is trying to create that new, evolved culture and values, right? That is based on what we created together as a company, right? So as part of the merger, we redefined our values, and we're currently in the process of introducing them into the organization. And the biggest challenge, guys, is just the time and the ability to get them through every corner of the organization. I say that deliberately because, we have over 40 locations worldwide. Here in San Diego, we're fortunate that we have almost 400 people under one roof, so we can touch 400 people quickly. But as you look at some of our other locations that might only have 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, right? And if we have a lot of those locations, it becomes a monumental task. So really, I think the biggest challenge in bringing this together is making sure that we have a clear vision, that we continue to drive the introduction of our new values, define them for our people, let them get a taste of them, and stay the course, because this is not, a short journey. This is something that'll take time, and we just can't give up. You just have to be at it. It's a consistent cadence and trying to make sure that people understand here are values and that are going to be supporting the new mission.
And it seems like if you're putting out new values or just, values at all, that you got to, especially management has to live by those values, and the people have to just sit back and watch it all to see if it can actually stand the test of time. Because we've all heard it before where people say something and this is our mission statement and these are our values. This is what we stand for. And then it all fizzles out after a month or two. And it's like, hey, but I thought we stood for this. And it's like, I know, but, not this time. But it's like, no, we do it. It's black and white. This is how it is. And it's not going to change. So very well, 6 months to a year, people are like, no, they're about it. Day in, day out.
And that's a perfect point. I could tell you it'll take us way more than 6 months to do this. And if we don't want them to be the flavor of the month, right? As you said, the poster on the wall that nobody really pays attention to, it takes time and dedication and really persistence at the leadership level. And you said a key thing. The leaders set the tone for the rest of the organization. Everybody is looking at the leadership to see, are they, walking the talk? And as leaders, I'll tell you, it takes us time also to come on board, right? I think we're all, very supportive of the values, but we got a lot of pressures that are coming our way, to your point, that might sometimes help us, or I should say not help us in making necessarily the best action choice. So we have to collect ourselves and go back and correct it. And what's important, and one of our values, honest and trust, is acknowledge it. We're not going to be perfect. It's going to take time. We're going to make mistakes. But as long as we keep driving towards having a uniform approach to living the values at the leadership level, then people start believing my goodness, this company really means it. And that's because the leaders live it. And that's because the leaders then start holding their people accountable for that.
At Brothers, we took the time to really figure out whether or not those were going to be the ones we were going to preach to the team. We had these leadership meetings between ourselves and our managers, and we came up with the morals and the values and the core values, but we didn't release them to the whole team, didn't throw it up on a wall until we really kind of wanted to figure out if we were actually going to live by those as a leadership team, and not just introduce these, like you say, flavor of the month, where it's like, oh, we're going to do this now, oh no, we're not doing that no more, it didn't work.
Because in all honesty, we thought that there were some people that weren't going to be there in probably a month or two. Mm-hmm. This is our mission statement and these are our values, but we know that there's people on our team that are killing the culture. And if we roll this out, they're just going to be, 10 times worse. Mm-hmm. It's sort of strategic too. You got to do something about it, and only you know what's right and what to do for your business. But, some of the best thing we did was just putting together a team that was on board with who we were and what we were trying to do. And they aligned with the goals that, we really had in mind. And that was really important, because if you don't have a team that, is on track with that, no matter how good they are, and it's, killing the culture, it's just really not going to do what you want it to do. And your business is not going to flourish the way that, you want it to.
That's a really good point. And let me add to this, right? If you're looking at a small business, think of a situation where the person that is not following your values is your main moneymaker, right? That's when you're talking with smaller business, right? When it becomes a very difficult thing. Do you say, look, hey, I'm going to be losing a lot of money because the values that I rolled out aren't in alignment with what this person's doing? And that's a trade-off, right? So if you decide to go with where the money's coming from, guess what? You're probably going to cause retention issues when other people say, well, that was just the flavor of the month. So a very interesting predicament, right? That needs to be handled delicately by the business owners.
I think we were almost kind of protecting the culture in a way sometimes with that, was where we knew that if we launched these values that those people would stick out like a sore thumb, right? Because, then the whole team would be like, well, why is that guy still working here? But that's the difficult part. And what we do is you don't have the luxury of just hiring somebody else real quick. We're not some fast food chain that people are just lining up the door to come work for us. So it's hard to make that, if we roll these out and we really push them, that guy's going to really look bad and everybody on the team is going to know that guy looks bad. So you got to, you're right, strategic in only rolling out so many things at a time and only, and kind of pushing these values on them, but not like announcing them to the world. So as far as company culture goes, what do you think is unique about Fluidra?
I'll tell you, I think what makes us unique is that we actually, and this is all the way from the top, although again, we're rolling out some new values, that we firmly believe that values are the key to success. And what really, really, I think resonates with our customers is the fact that our values shine through in everything we do. So whether it's the innovative products we try to bring out, look at the quitting the internet, that was our passion for results, right? To our ZPPN symposium, it's our opportunity to really demonstrate through the way that we partner with our customers, right? How we want to help not only them, the industry, but obviously eventually the pool users.
Very cool. So how do you kind of, as a leadership team and, on a high level, discuss company culture and how you implement certain things?
It all starts back going to the business goals, right? So it doesn't matter how big your company is. I think every company should have business objectives, and I think they typically do, that they're looking to achieve, right? In two time frames, right? The short time frame, you're looking at a year, months, or whatever, and then the long term. Once you understand that, then what you can do is ensure that those goals are cascaded throughout the organization. And number 3, making sure that you understand the rules of engagement, as I said earlier, which means how are we going to deliver those goals, right? So your values become critically important to talk about, and passion for results. If we make a decision that doesn't produce the best results, what are we doing about it, right? And are we following through on the value? Honesty and trust is another value. Did we communicate to the organization the status of things, how well we're doing with the merger, for instance? So really at a very high level, the values are those, guiding principles, the compass. I think I mentioned that earlier, that really make sure that, are we going in the right direction? Are we following our own rules? Are we walking the talk that we said we were? And it helps us make decisions, right? At the strategic level, at the business level.
Very good. And I'm sure it's so important to actually just know who your team is, like know them like the back of your hand. Like each leader needs to know their team members. And it was really important for us to really, if we knew that a team member was just, we knew their personality so well that if there was something just not right, pull them aside or take them to lunch and do something. And it's crazy how far that really goes, and just buying them a burger and just talking about it. And it's like, hey man, I'm here to talk to you. It's not saying that you have to be their best friend or anything,
friends. But we just become best friends.
Yeah. But it's like the good human thing to do to somebody that works hard for you, to take them sort of under your wing and be the teacher. They're the student, and just be there to help them. Like we were talking about in terms of high cost on HR, that's something that you can do for the cost of lunch. You can go to In-N-Out for, $20 and just talk it out. And it goes so far. And we heard it from our team members over and over that it was like, that's it's really cool of you to do something like that. And it helped me get through what I was going through. Because it's like, you don't even know. I've been through what you've been through. I just got through it a little bit quicker.
And think about the power of values that are clearly stated and communicated, right? Those are your talking points. It depersonalizes the conversation. Whereas instead of me saying, hey, you're not doing this, you can say, our value is this. And some of the things that I've seen just don't seem to support that value. Tell me about it. It's a really, really good way to give, organizational leaders, business owners, managers an opportunity to have those difficult conversations, right, in a non-confrontational way. So that's the power of values, because everybody that works there understands them and they know the rules of engagement. And it's very simple to say, hey, help me understand why this value wasn't followed. Tell me through your perspective. How can I help you follow it, right?
And you know what's crazy? And just watching you say that, it is so crazy too for you listening. Look at yourself in the mirror when you're genuinely asking somebody that question, because facial expressions are everything. I feel like you could have very well said that and just kind of been a real, you just have that look to your face like, I'm doing this because I have to. I really could care less. You know what I mean? But genuinely putting your effort in to get to the bottom of this and why you didn't, we have guidelines here. We do have a process. We gave you a job description. You're supposed to do A through Z and you're missing half of that. Like, talk to me more about this and why you didn't complete these. And it's just, there's a lot of different elements to this whole entire thing. It's very, like you said, psychological, and you really have to understand people and the way that people think. And that's just one big characteristic, because even, dealing with daughters and our wives and family members, and you just know it's like, it's not what you said. It's how you said it.
That's absolutely right. And that's a very strong retention tool. Think about the respect, right, you get when you're actually talking to somebody in terms that they understand, where you're taking the time to help them understand this is what you need to do to be successful. And I say this because I respect you and I want you to be part of the team. So very powerful.
Yes. We took that to a whole nother level, I think, too, with Kyle, our service manager. He was more dealing with them day to day. And we had taken a step back as the owners a little bit as far as that personal touch. So we actually asked Kyle every day or every week to report on each one of them individually. So it would help us understand what's going on in their lives, helps you understand how to communicate a little bit better. Somebody's going through a divorce or somebody's dog died or something that week, can kind of, as a human being, you feel a little bit more empathy towards that person, and you're probably going to have that conversation a little bit differently than if you didn't know that, right? So you have to kind of do your due diligence in understanding each one of your employees, what they're going through. Just like customers we talked about, when, sometimes customers come at you really hard, but you don't really know what's going on in their life. So, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt and just try to do your best as the business owner to kind of shape that and deliver that in the right way.
Exactly.
I think the best experiences I had in life were watching some of my bosses really working their ass off, and they would ask me to come into their office and they would close the door and they're like, hey, I want to talk to you and see what's going on. And they just did it so well. It's like, man, this guy that just works so hard 24/7, works all the overtime. He's taking time out of his day to talk to me and talk to me about things that aren't even relevant to what's going on with work. Just like, how are those classes doing? I know you wanted to take those college courses. How's that going? Because I really need you to stay focused on that, because, you want to apply for this other position. You're going to have to, add that to the resume. And it's so crazy in just we kept talking about it, but setting an example and, taking the time to really do that and being somebody that people really admire and respect. Because that's a big thing. If you got a smile on your face and you're, just working and people can see that and you're there every morning and you're doing all that. And I'm saying that because towards the end, probably the last maybe 4 to 6 months, I didn't do that very well. I kind of took myself out because I knew Ty was going in for, to see the repair person and get things ordered, and Kyle had this handled. And, that feeling of picking and choosing when I could come in, because doing a lot of things with pool chasers, like it just felt disconnected from those guys. And I felt that respect kind of floating away, where it's just like, hey, what's up? And it was more like, you're just a boss that's, here, there, like don't even know. It's important we all make mistakes. We learn from things, and, looking back and reflecting on that, definitely don't lose that touch. If you have a business, it doesn't matter if you're on the edge of selling or whatever it's doing, keep that. Don't burn bridges. Stay in tune with your people, be with them, and comfort them pretty much. Yeah, I just want to put my 2 cents in on that. Most owners in our industry wear, a lot of different hats, and HR being one of them. What does all of this mean for the pool industry and small business in general?
I think we have a challenge here, right? As we go forward, as we see, the new generations of people entering the workforce, as we see the pool industry in general, it's the same challenges that big companies have. Is how do you get the best people for your business to be able to deliver the best service to your customers, right? I think the sooner that small business owners and medium-sized business owners, and in general just any business owner, quite frankly, realizes that they have to take the management of their people, the human resources, seriously, the better they're going to have results. And I think it boils down to a couple of basic things, chief among which are communication. I think you were alluding to that earlier, right? And showing a sincere interest in your teams through a strong sense of leadership. Those are some of the basic elements that I think fundamentally you need to be able to draw people to your business and help them want to stay. And then, of course, there's a couple of other things that they can start implementing. Better recruiting practices. Your checklist of questions you want to answer, et cetera. Making sure you're paying people equal to or better than your competition, and knowing what that is, right? Those kinds of things come into play. But at the most fundamental level, I think for our industry, as we're going forward, is creating an opportunity for people to have a livelihood where they feel respected, where they have the attention and the appreciation of the business leaders, the small pool business owners, and are given the opportunity to succeed out there.
Thank you. So just curious, Ruben, what your thought is on this, but I think there's some owners out there that they're good at a lot of different things, but because of the way some of us can be raised, we don't really have those sort of quality traits in our personality on maybe even what's appropriate at work and how to treat people and facial expressions and all of that. I mean, some of us are just really lucky, like yourself, and you talked about your father being a good example, and that really helped shape who you are. And, we can say the same, but there's so many people out there that just weren't that fortunate to have that person in their life. So I don't know if you have any maybe recommendations, or maybe there's good books, maybe there's just something that you should be reading, or a community you should join, but just something that can really help, shape that personality.
Yeah, I think, the way that I would answer that question, and it could be difficult, right? Because a lot of it is embedded in who you are as an individual and what you're comfortable with, and how you react to certain things that happen and all that. But I think fundamentally, the first thing I would say is there has to be a desire to want to be better, right? And people have to recognize that there's a right way to treat people and deal with people, and there's a way that's not as effective. Once they come to that realization, then obviously I think the first step is kind of self-help books. You can find a bunch of different things out on the internet. If you type in leadership and dealing with teams, you're going to see a lot of them. One of my favorites is, The 5 Dysfunctions, Patrick Lencioni, sorry. That's an interesting book that talks about, when teams come together and what leaders can do to make them good teams or bad teams. The other thing that I also suggest is trying to, if there are local networking opportunities, try to join some of those, attend the meetings, and then be completely vulnerable. And sometimes this is difficult, and saying, look, I've noticed that I'm probably not the best communicator with my team or some of the people that I interact with. Tell me how you do it. Because if you really want to desire and you start asking people in these forums, for help, I've again, my experience in all these things, most people will tell you, yeah, well, this is what I've done, or there's this class that I took, or read this book, or I remember I used to do that and it's been difficult for me. This is how I learned, right? If you want to invest a little bit more, there's coaches, and there's coaches at a lot of different price points that people will come in and pretty much tell you this is how you can improve this area. A lot of times it'll take some self-assessment. You fill an assessment on yourself. You have to be vulnerable. You might have the person suggest, are you open to getting feedback from your teams, right? And then ultimately your customers. And that could be good and bad, because sometimes what you see is not what you really wanted to see.
Exactly.
And it can come back to you. So that's why I say fundamentally you have to have a sincere desire to want to change. And I think that usually comes with the recognition that maybe, just maybe, there's something out there that's keeping you from being as successful as you think you can be, or keeping you from making that next step in your business. Once that's there, if you follow some of the things that I suggested, I think you typically will open the doors to that realization that, hey, there's a different way of doing it.
Right. And you made a huge point too, that you have to want to change. It's not just something like, oh, this is something I got to do in order to, it's like, no, you have to know that there's a problem. You might not know how to fix it, but you have to say, this keeps happening, and I think that I'm the root of this problem. It's funny, I'm thinking about the show Bar Rescue, and he will ask some of the most basic questions why things are just not working correctly. And it'll be like, can you, to the bartender, to the owner, it's like, what do you think is wrong here? And they'll say, it's him. Why is it him? Because he's doing A, B, and C. And they'll be like, I didn't know that's the way you felt. Like they genuinely were just asking some very fundamental questions, and the people got answers. They didn't like it. But once they actually kind of decided to, take it in and change, things were just that much better. And I know it's just a TV show, but we understand that if we heard that and you were willing to fix it, and you put your pride aside, that you would be in a much better place.
That's exactly right. Putting the pride aside is the hard part sometimes.
It is very difficult, but as time goes on, if it's something you want to do, we both get better with that every day, but it's got to be something that you genuinely want to do. Because I know for a fact that if I keep that pride, it's just going to hurt me. It's going to hurt the business. It's going to hurt people around me. So every day, just be better at, it's okay.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot more respect that way too, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we're good at looking at ourselves and finding faults and understand our weaknesses, whereas a lot of people aren't. I think that's one of our strong points as business owners. We kind of understood, and we have each other to bounce it off. We know what each other does better and what we don't do. But I think a lot of times we hear from pool business owners is really that they don't understand that they're the problem. And, when they would come, especially now with Pool Chasers, people talk to us all the time about their businesses. And, there's several times in my head where they're talking to me and asking me, how can I fix this? And I'm like, man, I don't have the guts to tell them, and that at that point that it's that they're the problem. You know what I mean? Because sometimes they're super aggressive, super strong. You can tell that they don't know how to communicate well. And I keep losing people. This guy keeps quitting on me. My best guys quit. Well, you're probably the problem. It's good for you to come and assess yourself sometimes and just take a step back and look at what's happening. If it keeps happening, find the solution. Find the pain point where it's happening and figure that out. Because a lot of times it is the business owner, and a lot of times when they're talking to us, I can see that it's really probably them that's causing those issues.
But a lot of what we see too is people just not being professional.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be people's best friends and think that they're the homie. It's, you need to be a professional and understand that the people that work for you, they need to aspire to be someone like you. They look up to you almost like their father. There's just so many people that are just not professional, and they're totally inappropriate. You're a business owner. Like, take some pride in what you do, because they will bend over backwards and do anything that you ask them to if you just rise above and be the commander in chief and just lead these people. Once you get into where you're just blending in with everyone and you're just one of them, you're there till midnight and you're cutting checks. Like, is that really what you want it to be?
That's exactly right, and that's a great point. Let me tell you, I think how I would categorize that. Right, it's a difference between giving somebody a job and an experience. Right, if you look at a job, what does it do? It gives you a paycheck, perhaps allows you to go and have fun, pay your rent, support your family, etc., get you to school, whatever the case might be. If you have an experience, you can look at that from a lot of different dimensions, and it's, I enjoy working with the people that I do. I enjoy being out in the field. I'm learning. I am supported. I'm given the tools to be successful. The business owner or the manager asks me how I'm doing, and if if they can do something to help me be even more successful. So think about the difference between a job and experience. And what I'm seeing nowadays is that, with a new workforce that's coming in, and where I think the biggest challenge exists for the pool industry, that we're still doing jobs as opposed to trying to create that experience. And experience could be a good one, right? If you have somebody that respects you and treats you, like you said, professionally, and you can have a bad experience where it's just, oh my God, this person is just so difficult to work with. So
that's really good. Because that's what we're doing for our customers, right? We're trying to go above and beyond and giving them the best experience so that they work with us. And that should be the same way that you approach. You even put money in your marketing budget to get future customers. Why wouldn't you do the same with your employees and going above and beyond and making sure that they have the best experience that you can give them? Just us being here in this new facility is just phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's huge, but you guys have a huge cafeteria where there's a ping pong table and, restaurant style booths, and there's a fire pit outside of the roll up door. It's an amazing place. And, obviously this isn't something most companies can afford, pool service companies can afford, but it's just cool that, a company like this is investing in the people and their experience while they're here at work, the day to day.
Absolutely. And we recognize that if we want to have the best customer experience, it comes from the best employee experience. And it doesn't have to be multi-million-dollar business. It could be a small business that puts that effort, right? So imagine a pool service pro who's going out, fixing your equipment, cleaning your pool, who has a great experience at work. Guess what? They're probably going to be pretty damn good with the customer. Think about one that gets beat up at work, right? The boss doesn't treat them right. The supervisor's, demeaning, condescending. How are they going to be with the customer? It's probably going to be reflected.
Yeah, they're the front line.
Exactly.
They're the ones that have that interaction every day. So if you're not good to them, they don't care about the customer. Why should they care about the customer if you don't care about them as the employee?
So one of the questions that we hear a lot is, how do I retain my employees? How can a strong company culture guard against employees leaving for different opportunities?
Okay. Let me tell you what I'll say is probably the most basic element that any company should have, and that is open communication. Okay. I think we've been kind of skirting that topic and touching it, but let me talk about it more directly right now. Business owners, small business owners, or leaders of big business, does not matter, have to be approachable, have to invite communication, and have to listen. That's absolutely important. Not just hear, but listen and pay attention. I think what most people want to understand when they are part of an organization, whether it's a team, a business, whatever it is, they want to feel like they're connected to whatever it is we're trying to achieve. The best way to do that is through communication, where the leaders are telling their people, hey, this is what we have going on. This is what we're trying to do. This is how we're going to do it. But the leaders are also open. When a question comes up, well, that doesn't seem like that's the most effective way of doing it. Why do we do it? Instead of saying, well, that's just the way we do it, let's deal with it. Saying, well, tell me, why don't you think, what do you think we should be doing? When leaders at the most fundamental level open themselves up to communication and have an open door policy, so to speak, I think that's one of the most effective ways without any cost. It's just an attitude. It's just a behavior. It's just a desire and philosophy, right, on the business leaders. You are immediately signaling to the people, wow, they care about what I say. Might not always turn out to be what I want it to be, but at least they're taking into account what I say. They're showing me the respect. And I think I'm going to stick around to see where we go with this, right? Because I feel I'm being heard. That's a fundamental human nature. Or I should say, fundamental human need, right? Have that respect that, okay, I'm part of something bigger, and what I say is heard, and sometimes it actually, takes effect.
Right. And I think a lot of people will say that they don't have time to talk to their team every 2 seconds. I think what it is one thing affects another. If you don't have process and procedures and you don't have an outline of what's expected of them or who their point of contact is, you're always going to get blown up with questions because nothing in your business is structured and nobody fully knows what they're doing. They know 80% of what the details are in the job, but you're constantly never going to have time because it's like, man, I just got done talking to so-and-so and so-and-so, and now you need to come in here and talk. And it's like, that's the problem. If everybody here had a, job description and they had the P&Ps for everything, you wouldn't be having to do that. It would be much easier to just have an open door policy and people just step in to, put their 2 cents in on something. Because if they were coming into your office, it would probably be for something better. Maybe they have a new innovative idea for the business or, something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
So investing in culture can be costly. How can small business make culture a priority without breaking the bank?
Here's a couple of things that I think smaller businesses can definitely implement pretty quickly. First, as I mentioned, the open door policy, right? Open communication. Really invite people to share their thoughts about how they see things going in a non-threatening way, right? People need to feel like they are going to be able to share with you some sincere feedback and that you're going to listen and not react harshly to it or negatively to it. But like, what do you mean? Or defensively, because that immediately throws the open door policy out the window. So really is have an open door policy, be willing to listen to your teams. Number one. Number two, another one that's very simple. This is kind of on the tail end of employment. Say you do wind up losing a few people or somebody who was key to your team. Have an exit interview. Sit them down and say, hey, before you go, please let me know what it is we could have done different. What was your decision? Was it based on the fact that, you got a higher paying job? What could we have done differently here? What are you hearing from your team members that maybe I need to be focusing on as the business leader, right? To make sure we start implementing, some of these different things. Number three, again, none of these things cost. Show appreciation and recognition. All too often, because there's so many hats that we're wearing, we tend to focus on what we think are the most important things, which is the customer, generating the revenue, getting the services out. Okay. But the fallacy of that is, unless you really invest in what I, of course, as an HR professional, think is the most important, taking time to listen to your people and recognize and show appreciation on a regular basis, we're missing out on a great opportunity to just signal to that person how much they mean to the organization. Imagine the impact of somebody saying, look, this month our revenues were X. And I'll tell you that a lot of that is because you guys consistently perform at a high level and word's getting out there in the community that ABC Pool Company is a top-notch service provider. And I want to recognize you for that, guys. Hey, let's take a minute. Let's just do a little round like, hooray. Let's clap. Let's go out there and do it again. Something as simple as that, the recognition and appreciation, I often find goes out the door when people are wearing the multiple hats because everybody thinks they got to do other things that are more important.
Right.
With and quotation marks. More important. Quotation.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you guys are doing around here? What have you seen leaders doing around here with their people that you've just seen really kind of boost up morale?
I think the thing that helps the most are regular communication meetings, right? So we do quarterly communication meetings, and this is kind of at a company-wide level where we're talking to people about the state of the business. We have different leaders throughout the organization present different things functionally. We want to make sure that people feel connected to the business. They understand the goals and what we're trying to achieve. And sometimes that also means acknowledging the fact that we haven't lived up to our values, right? 'Cause I'm saying we're not perfect. Sometimes we're going to stumble and sometimes we might not have done the things they should have, is acknowledging that in front of people, right? So first and foremost, communication and making sure that people feel connected to the bigger overall vision. Secondly, as we break down into more individual team levels, is making sure that our leaders are walking the talk. That is, are our leaders prepared to lead the teams by using values as the basis upon which they do all things, by how they conduct themselves, by how they conduct performance evaluations, by how they reward those individuals that show a strong support for the culture and values. Then you break it down to more things like, you mentioned earlier the ping pong table, a building that has a fire pit and a balcony and a beautiful surrounding, right? The fact that we've had, or we're about to start implementing what I'm calling Thirsty Thursdays, right? We're going to get some local keg, beer providers bring some kegs and do things like that. Those are appreciations. We just had a scavenger hunt where we got cross-functional teams and they had to go find clues. Things like that is what really drives our values, right? Obviously, being successful is important because it reinforces the values, but getting people together in a very social way, having fun, making sure they understand we're serious about what we do, but we're also a family type environment in light of the fact that we're almost 400 people under one roof.
Right.
That's what we try to do.
But that's how you make, I would think, success more consistent over time, is constantly feeding that culture. And having great communication. Because if you have the best team and you're just so focused on that, I think you would just ultimately do successful, you'd be doing good business all the time, for years to come.
Correct. The other side to the equation, right, is, as you understand your values, and again, this applies to any company of any size, is knowing the type of people that you're hiring. So we spend a lot of time and effort in vetting out any candidate that applies to our organization for a job to ensure that the values are something they can really support. And we are 100% more likely to hire somebody based on promise of strong performance if they have a strong values alignment, as opposed to a technical expert who's like maybe the master of that domain, but we notice that the values aren't there. And as we start bringing those types of individuals that support our values in, guess what? It becomes very easy because they themselves are around other people who support our values, and it just becomes kind of an ongoing self-reinforcing machine.
Yeah, one of those is much harder to teach than the other.
Exactly right.
For sure. Well, speaking of, managers and leaders, when the owner comes up with these core values or mission statements, how do you suggest that they pass that on to the other leaders of their team? How do get your team to come on board with those?
Let me tell you how we did it, and I think this is effective everywhere. Early on, I mentioned that leaders have to set the example first. So what I would do is first introduce what the values are going to be, if possible, and it makes sense if you can have some people participate in the creation of the values. Say you're starting from scratch, right? Think about the power of having some leaders and some individual contributors being part of that. Do a little brainstorming session. Let's get some ideas up. What are we about? Because you're creating basically the identity of the organization. Once you create that identity of the organization, then you communicate what they are. You communicate the vision and the vision, and then you start tasking your leaders with, okay, guys, how are we going to put this into effect? And I would assign various leaders to be the ones that take point, pick a month, pick 3 months during which their point and kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to get the rest of the team to believe that this is a value we subscribe to, right? It can be activities. It can be going out and having informal chats. It could be more formalized activities and team building, all kinds of different things. But I would pass the values, even if it's just a small handful. Let the leaders be the ones that are making the first step. I think the most critical step is then doing it from the bottoms up. Then I would say to the employees, okay, guys, we're doing our best as leaders to demonstrate these values on each and every day. Give us your feedback. How are we doing? And guess what? Don't do that unless you're open to be completely vulnerable and open to doing something with the feedback you get, because otherwise this is going to blow up in your face. If you open it up to the employees to give you the feedback after you've gone through your trial period, right? You're doing this for 6 months, and then you say, hey, are we living up to them? If you see they're saying, no, Joe Schmo, or this is not happening, you have to go back to figure out what you got to do, and then what kind of change you're going to make. And then ultimately, that's when people start believing. When from the bottoms up, they have an influence on how the organization is going to embrace those. That's when they've permeated throughout the organization.
And they feel like they can talk to you.
Exactly right.
Because they're like, wow, I was honest with them and communicated with them that this was the problem, and they fixed it.
And there were no repercussions.
Exactly.
Yes.
We're now still smiling with me, and yeah, there's no problems.
Exactly right.
Are there any books or resources you can recommend for listeners to check out that may help with leadership, company culture, or employee retention?
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I really enjoy is a book called The Why by Simon Sinek. If you go online, you can find a lot of his the YouTube video, and that one really just from a leader perspective, it gives you some really good tools on how to get people rallied around what it is you're trying to do. And fundamentally, I think people do even better when they know why it is they're doing something right, and how they're going to get there. So that's a book that really helps. From Good to Great, Jim Collins. I think I might have mentioned that one earlier. That's another great basic leadership book. We're talking about they use an analogy of the bus, right? They're using the business as a bus, and certain people get on, certain people have to get off. And you have to always make sure you have the right people to be able to get that bus going to where it is. And, the other one that I've always enjoyed and I read quite frequently is The 5 Dysfunctions of the Team, Patrick Lenciani. That's a classic. And it really forces you to ask the question once you read it, like, I see some of the people that are mentioned in this book here. What am I going to do with it? So it's really something that makes you think. Those three have been, very, very influential.
It's really funny, the books that just talk to you right away. You hear something, you're like, oh my God, this book is about me.
Yeah, we say, oh man, we're talking about Joe Schmo.
I need to read this, not be on audiobook anymore. Everyone's getting weirded out.
Exactly right.
I think one of the ways you guys have implemented the company culture and pushed it out to, us as the industry is through the ZPPN, symposium. We thought that was one of the coolest events we've ever been to because, you really focused on us as the business owner, as an individual, rather than, pitching a product. So, can you speak on to why you guys host that event and, why you chose to kind of focus on the business owner rather than, pitching something?
Absolutely. Now, this is going to probably start sounding cliche, right? We're talking about values, and I'm going to refer one of our values, customer collaboration, and passion for results, right? We firmly believe that what distinguishes us, from other competitors in the field is the fact that we truly mean it when we say relationship with our customers is key. And we understand that the relationship means that we're helping our customers be successful. All the pool professionals that each and every day are out there, trying to create that fantastic experience that we talked about for their customers, right? So inherent in what we do is just making sure that we can leverage everything we've learned as an organization, obviously, with fortunately, some more resources, and see how we can share some of that learning with our customers, right? To help them, bring about the best outcomes for their customers and for their own businesses. So ZPPN is just an example of, how we go out there and we're trying to leverage our learning so that other people can learn from that. What better way to really reinforce the fact that we value our relationships, a pump's a pump, heater's a heater. We have good equipment there across the different, providers of those things. But I think what really sets us apart is that we mean it. We back up, what we put out in the market with the relationship, and you in essence get a business partner with us. So.
Yeah, 100%. We talk about it all the time being at the symposium when we did, and it is hands down the best event we've ever been to. I mean, it was the first event that we've ever left and we're just motivated. Like, we felt good because we learned about HR and some marketing stuff. But the big thing was we actually got to communicate with Zodiac and Jandy people and network with other pool professionals that were there at the event. And it was just amazing. It was unlike anything you'd ever seen. You're expecting at some points, like, I know they say you're not going to talk about anything, but I'm sure a JXI or something's going to pop up out of iAqualink's going to be under the table. And like, oh, yeah, here it is. But there really was none of that. It was just is what it is. And we had a phenomenal time. And you're totally right. That is what sets you guys apart, because we have really good relationships with the reps that we have back in Arizona. You guys do a really good job at that.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah, it always comes across as caring. And even the reps we've met here in San Diego, some of the other ones through some of the shows, talking to you guys, it comes from the top all the way to the bottom. And, it's really been cool to see you guys implementing that out and them taking that and running with it in the field. Like we talked about this whole time, you guys, those reps treating us correctly as business owners, treating those business owners with respect and understanding and listening, like you're saying, listening to what they're saying, what they're asking for, being able to help in those areas is really cool to see. And I think it makes a big impact on those business owners out there.
I know that's absolutely why we do it.
So what do you think listeners can expect to see from the merger to Fluidra, and, where can they find out more information if they'd like to do so?
Absolutely. I mean, let me tell you, I think, first and foremost, we got two very strong players in the pool industry, right? Coming together and combining their resources and their abilities to continue delivering on our mission, right? The perfect pool and wellness experience. We get to leverage each other's expertise. We get to leverage, all of our, know-how and innovation, and more importantly, the drive that, these providers have had in trying to bring to market those things that are going to really push forward the experience of pool users, and even a commercial setting, right? As we start exploring some of those things with bringing Fluidra on. So really, it's just a stronger backing and a slate of new things that'll be coming out, right? strictly for addressing the needs of our pool users and our customers, and to make that experience as great as possible. I think if people want to get a little more information about the organization, best way to do that is to go to our website, fluidra.com. There's a lot of information there about not only the Americas region, right, headquartered out of here in San Diego, but just every piece of the company. And what people will recognize is that, Fluidra not only talks about, being a strong partner to our business professionals out there working in the pool industry, but also being a responsible corporate entity, right? We believe in sustainability. The wellness side of what we do, has a strong focus on people and health, and I think it'll be a game changer in the fact that we truly will bring our values to bear on everything we do, whether it's the equipment that we're putting out, the interactions that people are going to have with us, or the follow through after the fact, right? We just don't, make the sale and run. We're here as a long-term partner to those people that choose to be a part of the Fluidra family.
Right.
We're going to see any of the branding kind of change a little bit from the Zodiac to Fluidra. Is there anything?
Yes, we're actually working through that. I know Jandy is a very strong brand. That one's staying. I know Polaris is a very strong brand. That one's staying. I know Zodiac, if you're an MX8 follower, right, it's a strong brand, right? So what I suspect is going to happen, like a lot of big other companies are going to have their portfolio of brands that are well recognized in the particular spaces that they serve continue, with Fluidra in essence being the big corporate holder of all these. So I think from a branding perspective, we're really trying to make sure that we don't, how does it say it? Don't fix what ain't broken.
Right, exactly.
Yep, for sure.
That's great advice. Well, this was a great conversation, Ruben. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. This is a topic that everybody really needs to listen to and try and perfect. You can never do enough with this. You can always make it better. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely, Greg, Tyler, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for the privilege of allowing me to participate. Really, really, really excited to do this, and again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ruben. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you giving us your time and your ear. If you're not following us on social media platforms yet, we are providing great content on there as well. So please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. If you're interested in helping support the podcast and get access to great bonus content, as well as an opportunity to record a bonus episode or even a full episode with us, you can go to patreon.com/Pool Chasers. That's patreon.com/Pool Chasers. And did you know that you can also subscribe to the podcast so that you get updated every time a new episode is released? So if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. And if you like what you hear, please take the time to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and all other major podcast platforms. Also, check out the Pool Chasers Facebook page. This is a place for like-minded pool professionals to ask questions, share knowledge, and come together as a community to help better the industry. Thank you all for the support. We truly appreciate it.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.